And that's what's really strange. Because if you understand the Hebrew, you know that one scene when the Israelites were complaining in the wilderness, and Yahweh sent, it says, fiery serpents among them, and whoever was bitten by those serpents died. And then he told Moshe to raise up this staff with the brazen serpent on it, which is a type of Christ. And anyone who looked upon that serpent would be healed. Well, the Hebrew word for that is the same word that's used for seraphim. So for whatever reason, the Almighty got really honked off at the Israelites at that point and sent his most powerful angels down there to trouble them. But normally they never leave the throne. Speaking of the throne, we have the cherubim or cherubim. These are the four living creatures. The word means one who prays or one who intercedes. And it is believed that there are originally 5 of them. We'll talk about that in a second. It is believed by most Bible scholars that originally there were 5 of them. And 4 of them were the actual throne upon which Yahweh sat. And the other one, the 5th one, covered him. Now, does that ring a bell with anybody? Lucifer is described in Ezekiel 28 as being the anointed cherub who covereth. Now think of this. If you look at how the cherubim are described in the book of Ezekiel and in the book of Revelations, what do we got? We've got one with the face of a man, one with the face of an ox, one with the face of an eagle, and one with the face of a lion. What does that mean? Well, there's a couple things it means. For one thing, they symbolize different kingdoms on earth. For example, obviously the human kingdom. Then you have the eagle. That's the kingdom of the birds of the air. Then you have the ox. That's the kingdom of domesticated animals. And you have the lion. That's the kingdom of wild animals. What's left? Reptiles and fish, which a lot of times in biblical lore you will see the two kind of intermingled. What I believe is that Lucifer was originally the 5th cherub who covered, and he was the cherub of the reptile kingdom, just like the others were the cherubim of the other kingdoms. And that's why after he fell, he took a serpent and somehow possessed it so the serpent could speak and talk to Eve and tempt her. Is because he had that natural affinity with the serpent kingdom. Some people actually teach that if you believe in this, I don't know, this is one of those things Christians argue about. We love to argue about stuff, don't we? Anyway, the idea of the pre-Adamic creation, some people believe that Lucifer was given a throne and a kingdom before man came on the earth. And that's why in Isaiah 14, what does he say there? He says, I will lift up my throne and ascend to the heights. He already had a throne. He was the king of the earth. And some people believe that his kingdom was a race of intelligent reptilians, which we now see as dinosaur fossils. Just something to think about. I'm not saying that's gospel or anything, but it is, because a lot of people who, are trying to fight the whole evolution thing, Christians get themselves all tied up in a knot with the whole dinosaur thing. Were there dinosaurs? Weren't there dinosaurs? I heard this one sweet Christian lady say, oh, well, Satan just put all those bones there to confuse us. There really weren't dinosaurs. The earth is really only 6,000 years old. And I believe the earth is only 6,000 years old, but I'm not sure I believe that. Because there may have been stuff going on before that. Because it is interesting, and I don't know what you folks believe or are taught about this, but it does say there in Genesis, he commands Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. How can you replenish something that first hasn't been plenished, if you'll pardon my fracturing the English language? The other interesting thing is that same word, both in English and Hebrew, is used to Noah after the flood. Yahweh says to him, go and replenish the earth. The other thing is that you'll notice in Genesis 1, what does it say? It says the earth was without form and void, The Hebrew there is tohu bohu. And you know, but it says Yahweh makes everything good. Why would he make an earth that's like this big glop of formless nothingness? Unless Satan ruined it, or unless there was a previous flood that is only alluded to in the Bible. And it is alluded to in the Bible, in the book of 2 Peter. Ever notice that? It talks about there, he's talking about how people are scoffers. They say that things have been as the world was from the beginning. And then there's this one very strange passage that people forget, that when the earth was in the water and out of the water and in the water. So it sounds like the earth got baptized twice. Once to get rid of Satan's kingdom, and once to get rid of the Nephilim in Genesis 6. Just some interesting suggestions. So anyway, my point is that if that's the case, then Satan, or Lucifer as he was known, actually his real name is Hallel, which means bright, shining one. That was the name in the Hebrew. But Lucifer, when he fell, he took the reptilian kingdom with him, and that's part of the reason why there's such a kind of about serpents. I mean, most people don't like lizards and snakes and crocodiles, aside from that they eat you. But I mean, other than that, I mean, it's just most people. I mean, I'll tell you, we used to have several pet snakes when we were witches, and in fact, we had a 6.5-foot boa constrictor. And I'll never forget one time, not one of the best nights of our life. It was right after we'd just done an equinox ritual in Milwaukee, and some nutball from the cult of Guru Maharaji threw a firebomb into our temple. Hey, you try having a firebomb thrown in your temple, you know. It was pretty, we were sitting around after the feast, kind of talking and having some wine and just socializing, and all of a sudden, boom, you know, because it was up in the attic, you see. And anyhow, of course, the first thing Sharon did was go and get her pet snake. You know, that's what you do. You get the living things out first, and then you take care of your property. And it was so funny because she still had on this long black robe from the ritual. And of course, you know how fire is, all the neighborhood people gather around. And she comes down, you know, she has long black hair, and she comes down the stairs with this giant snake wrapped around. And I'm wearing a scarlet robe because that's what the high priest wears. And we had this one fellow who was in our covenant. I felt so sorry for him. He was a fairly I think he was a doctor. And he was so freaked out by that, he never came back. Just that, you know, that had happened. And, you know, I think he was afraid that someone might find out he was a witch, you know. So anyway, I mean, snakes are amazing animals. But I really don't want to be around them anymore. Anyway. So, the other part about these four beings is this. They're associated with the four brightest stars in the heavens, these four cherubim, and also the four corners of the zodiac. Some of you may know this. The four signs, I think they're the cardinal signs of the zodiac: Aquarius, the man; Taurus, the ox; Leo, the lion; and the Scorpio is the eagle. Now, I'm not saying that astrology is true, but how many of you realize there is a true biblical way of looking at astrology? Not like, oh, you know, who am I going to marry, and it's some kind of weird predictive thing or whatever. But the gospel is in the stars. And here's how it breaks down if you're interested. The man-faced cherub goes with Fomalhaut in the council in Aquarius. The lion-faced cherub goes with Regulus, which is the constellation of Leo. The serpent-faced cherub goes with Antares in Ophiuchus, who is the serpent or eagle. And finally, the ox-faced cherub goes with Aldebaran in the constellation of Taurus, who is, of course, the bull. Okay. What's interesting is that all of these stars are regarded as gateways. Now, I know some people teach that stars are angels, and that might also be true. But in the occult and in the world of UFOs, these are actually regarded as gateways into other dimensions. So Aldebaran, for example, is a gateway into the realm of Taurus, and so on and so on. You get the idea. So these are actually things you can target. And so, like, for example, when I was a witch, I would astrally project, and I would actually